8. From business level, corporate level, now we move on to functional strategy. Talking about the strategy of each function, of each department. So it will be based on whatever value chain that you get for a company. Remember, the value chain of the firm can be different. It depends on the nature of the company itself. Some firms, they have the R&D, some they don't have. So it depends here. When we talk about these functional activities, we need to have a very clear idea of those purpose activities so that you can pick up the good one. One more thing that I would like to focus from this chapter is what we call sourcing decisions. For some firms, when you have already broken down their activities according to the value chain, they are going to decide which activities that they are going to do in some other location. This is what we call sourcing location. They are going to maintain R&D activities at home, but maybe because the wages expect, let's say, the minimum wage pay in this country is too high. They cannot maintain their low cost anymore. So they are going to relocate their manufacturing activities to third world country, let's say in China, emerging market, to maintain low cost. So that's why we are thinking about this kind of sourcing decision. And normally, this kind of sourcing decision or the locational function will revolve around these two things. First is outsourcing, and the other one is offshoring. What do we mean by these two? If I'm not wrong, some of the groups here, when they did some presentation, they talked about the concept of outsourcing. Okay, so that will be very easy for you to review. But for other students who haven't come up with this kind of concept in your assignment before, make sure that you review this concept. Outsourcing, very clear. This is like the reverse of vertical integration. Remember the concept of vertical integration that we just discussed? If it is vertical integration, it is like you are trying to include the other activities inside your own company. You are trying to do it yourself. By integrating backward, let's say, you are the manufacturing company. You perform manufacturing activities. You rely on, let's say, supplies or materials from outside supplier. But today, you are thinking about integrating the activities. So you acquire your own supplier. That is what? Backward integration. That is, you do something internally. You internalize the process because you believe that by acquiring your supplier, it will be better for your firm. Okay? But when we pick up this kind of outsourcing decision, just the opposite. Because you believe that this activity, this is your weakness. You are not so good at this function. So perhaps it's going to be better if you allow someone else to do it for you. Okay? You allow someone that gain more specialization to perform this task. It may be like much more efficient for your firm. So this is what we call outsourcing. Okay? This one, you need to be aware of some kind of the errors as well. If we are going to engage in this kind of outsourcing decision, what kind of errors that we need to be aware of and we try to avoid them. Okay? How can we select those kind of the supplier, the one that we are going to outsource our activities to? How to make appropriate outsourcing decision, your consideration. Should you do this activity yourself or should you let someone do it for you? Sometimes you have to refer back to the concept of transaction cost economy. Remember the TCE concept that we discussed that week? Go back and see. Okay? Whether it is worth doing these activities by yourself or you should let someone do it for you. Compare and contrast between internal transaction and the arm's length transaction. Offshoring, another decision. Very similar to outsourcing, but it means like you are going to set up one new unit in another country. Okay, let's say for my example earlier, given high wage pay in your country, so you think that you can bear these high expenses here. So you relocate your manufacturing activities to China. So you set up your production facilities in China. This is what we call offshoring. Manufacturing unit will be set up in China, okay, to be responsible for the whole manufacturing activities. At home, you maintain just only those high-stream activities like the R&D one in order to maintain your low cost. So these are some kind of sourcing decision which regard to the analysis of your value chain. We break down into function activities and come up with specific strategy for each function. It's clear? Next one. Chapter 9. Organizing for action. This is about organizational structure, the way that we try to organize our company to support our strategy. Another important issue is what I always emphasize. Structure follows strategy. Whatever structure that you come up, whatever the way that you design your, let's say, authority of let's say, the lines of command, okay, who will be responsible for this activity, these things must support the implementation of your strategy. So, a quick review on important strategies of the multinational firm. Remember those 4 types of the strategies? International, multi-domestic, global, and transnational. How can we derive these 4? What kind of consideration can we look at? Anyone? How do we come up with these 4? We consider based on what? 2 factors, what are they? Come on, IB students, 4th year. Remember these 4, international, multi-domestic, global, transnational, these 4 strategies derived from, first one, the degree of cost reduction or global integration. And the other one, the degree of local responsiveness. Whether you want to respond closely to particular tasks and wants of your customer in each country or not. For example, if you come up with lower degree of cost pressure, cost is not significant, plus low degree of local responsiveness. For your product, you don't have to make any adaptation to your product. It can satisfy the needs of everyone around the world. Then, the most appropriate strategy for your firm should be an international one. However, if you're concerned about cost reduction, if you feel that for your product, cost is very significant, because we are going to compete with other competitors based on cost, then you are thinking about if we are having this kind of manufacturing activities at home, perhaps this incur high cost. We need to relocate to a particular location that will result in some kind of cost saving, location economies. So if it is this way, then the most appropriate one should be a global strategy. So make sure you know what kind of the strategies that a multinational firm should use, should pursue. And based on whatever strategy that we have identified here, company's structure must support this thing. Okay? An international firm, you just start your international activities, you just start your internationalization. What should be the appropriate organizational structure of your firm? There are several forms of the organizational structure, like simple one. So simple one will be very easy. Normally, this is like for the domestic firm. When you grow further, maybe you add one export department. Okay? To represent what? Your overseas sale. Responsible for the overseas order. That's it. Maybe when you grow further, when you move from the steps of your internationalization, from the domestic firm to become international firm, you have more and more orders from abroad. Maybe it's the time for you to set up let's say, international unit to deal with all the international activities. So maybe based on what? Function activities, metrics, a bit complicated now, okay? 2 bosses, one for the function and the other one for what? For the area, whatever, okay? We also have global product where you face high degree of cost reduction. And we have global area where you're concerned more about local responsiveness. You think that for your company's operation, for your company's product, certifying local tests and preferences is your first priority. So that's why the structure must support this thing. Or even the network structure, that you try to link the operation of all the units all the way around in order to promote knowledge sharing, in order to promote cost saving. Okay, so these are the ideas for organizational structure and company strategy. The other topic from chapter 9 is about strategic alliances. Another popular strategy used by the multinational firm this day, given higher degree of competition, globalizing economy this day. One company alone, they might not be able to grow internationally by themselves. So that's why they need to seek some support from the other firm. So they go for strategic alliances, joint venture, those things. Okay, so that I can review the concept key, not that difficult. Chapter 10, in terms of staffing and directing. Okay? The same point that I would like to make. The way that you assign roles and responsibilities, the way that you deal with your employees, all these things must reflect the lineage that you have with your strategy. So the same point that I have made, staffing follows your strategy. So can you see the lineages now? Whatever strategy that you have identified earlier, make sure that structure supported. Your employees, human resource, the one to fill those functions, there must be some kind of lineages in between. They can support this function very well. And normally, when we talk about human resource, from the multinational perspective, don't forget, there are several issues that you need to consider. Some kind of differences across nations. What I mean is the cultural difference. If you can recall from your presentation, okay, we focus on cultural differences, the analysis by using cultural framework, those 5 dimensions, if you can recall. Okay, so hopefully this is not too difficult for you to review. How can we draw the implications of those cultural framework in your analysis? Managing diverse culture. So when we face those kind of conflict with the employees, what kind of the ways, all the recommendations that you are going to give to the company. Okay? So these are the things about human resource staffing. Last one from your textbook, chapter 11, evaluation and control. So based on your implementation of the strategy that you have identified earlier, it's time for you to evaluate whether those strategies, they went well according to what you have planned earlier or not. Evaluation and control process. If you can recall the presentation from the previous week, okay, that your friends, they present the steps here. What are those steps? How important they are. Controls follow strategy. The same thing. Can you see? Not only the structure, not only the way you deal with your employees, even the way that you try to measure, that you try to control the operations of your firm. They must be consistent with the strategy that you pursue. Types of control. What kind of control mechanism that you can use? Input, output, or behavior. How can you apply this kind of control? How important they are? Why we need this kind of control mechanism? Why? Because we have to make sure that our strategy, what we have planned, it works well with our companies. Okay? Primary measures of corporate performance. Financial measures like ROI, ROE, EPS, those things, okay, from the ratios that we have learned. Apart from financial measures, the basic one, we have balanced scorecard as well. Not many of you talk about this thing. But again, one aspect that you need to know. Balanced scorecard focus on 4 dimensions here. Financial aspect, customer, internal business perspective, innovation and learning. So that I can see what it means by having this kind of balanced scorecard to measure the performance of the firm. Apart from these general measures, we have specific measures for divisional and functional performance. Not only for the broad level, at the corporate level, for each functional activities, we have some kind of specific measure, like setting up profit center, those things, okay, to measure the performance. Again, what are those important international measurement issues? Let's say in terms of the standard requirements for your manufacturing activities. I think you have come across the word ISO,